This week, living the great life, the imprint left by every person, and the only reason to ever write a book. From 42 minutes and 24 seconds to 53 minutes and 33 seconds of Before Sunset, this is episode 17 of Don't You Know Me By Now.
Did you show up in Vienna that December?
And it's obvious to him that time is a lie.
Memory's a wonderful thing if you don't have to deal with the past.
If we didn't suffer, we wouldn't learn a thing.
Do I look any different?
I might have given up on the whole idea of romantic love.
Maybe.
Don't you know me?
You are gonna miss that plane.
Don't you know me by now?
I mentioned in the last episode that we recorded that this was the reading in which Celine really shows up and the film falls in love with her, and hot damn, was I right? That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, she's absolutely glowing in this sequence.
Isn't
and
it
the way
phenomenal?
like her costuming is so beautifully done, where her shirt is moving and blowing so much in the breeze and just showing her abdomen and her back a little bit. Oh, so
constant
beautiful.
movement around her. She's getting all of this just perfect golden light. She's getting all that golden hour glow. She's amazing. And the POV, the almost POV shots that we get of her, I think are just astonishing. Some of the most affectionate and intimate cinematography in the entire film. And it's no coincidence that the shot that really stands out to me is the one when they're getting onto the boat, when we're getting all of Jesse's voiceover as he's making the phone call to Philippe. And we just stay on Celine so that we're effectively in his POV. And it's just this loving portrait of this spectacularly beautiful woman in one of the world's great cities. Yeah. It's amazing how abrupt that pivot is. It's so striking. Where would you like to start with our discussion this week? Did anything really stand out to you this week apart from Celine's hotness and awesomeness?
I mean, it's devastating. Like this is such a difficult but beautiful and bittersweet piece of art and filmmaking. So just remembering how much it really kicked me in the gut the first time I watched the movie. It's
really in this reading that we pivot to what this film is about. That is going to reach its climax effectively in next week's reading. We only have 2 more readings to go. We have Traveling to Celine's Apartment and then The Time in Celine's Apartment. Yeah. So obviously those are going to be crucial readings. And next week really does develop a lot of the groundwork that's laid here, I think. But we kind of stop flirting with each other and start talking to each other in a really great and
45 minutes into their conversation before his marriage comes up.
Telling, right?
It's tough.
And he's not the one who brings it up.
No, he's not.
Yeah. And equally, 45 minutes before her relationship comes up, Celine being in a relationship with a photojournalist who is both heroic but also absent a lot of the time. Very Celine. Totally get it. Photojournalist is such a classic fictional occupation.
Totally.
Not to suggest that all photojournalists are fictional. Right. But it's a thing that we love giving to fictional characters as a career because it is, I think, it's heroic and it's kind of morally unconquered by the association with war and conflict. You get to be close to all of this violence, but equally all of this excitement, all of this dynamism, all of this, friction for your character, but you are held at a morally safe distance from those events. So you get all of the heroism, no downside. It's pretty amazing, which is why I think there are probably more photojournalists per capita in fiction than there have ever been in real life.
Yeah, I think it's probably true.
Does this track for you as a romantic pairing for Celine?
It does. It certainly seems better than she was doing before. Like she seemed to have a string of such terrible boyfriends in the earlier film. So I think that I do buy it for her. I like it for her. It's interesting when he's like, "You love this guy?" She's like, "Of course I do."
Oh, no. So you love this guy? What guy?
What guy?
Tell me everything about your relationship without telling me anything about your relationship.
So
You're right. It's the combination of what guy and of course I do.
Yeah.
Is really strong. We get to dispense with him very quickly because frankly, Celine's love life is not a focal point for this story. Does it feel strange? I was thinking only this time, having seen this movie, 30 times and having watched this clip several times just to prep for today's session. Does it feel as though the speed and the rapidity with which we dispense with her boyfriend reorients her in Jesse's POV to a kind of manic pixie dream girl, right? She doesn't effectively have her own life. She has fewer friends and connections in Paris in this movie than she did in the first movie. At least she referred to friends in that first film.
Interesting.
You know, we're going to see her
Yeah.
neighbors as we approach her apartment, but that's it. So she becomes, or could become, kind of subordinated to Jesse's story and his romantic dilemma here.
Yeah.
Do you feel that intuitively? Do you feel that emotionally as you're watching the film? Or do you feel that she's still strong and independent and fully realized?
I do think that she's independent, and I think fully realized. But these films never forget that Jesse's the central character, and I think for the most part that's okay.
Except kind of in these moments when we almost slip into his POV, and then she becomes very much the central character, which is a thing that the films do repeatedly, which I love.
Yeah.
I think it's okay that the film is oriented around Jesse if Jesse is oriented around Seine.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of works
It
for
works
me.
out, I think.
So we talked about this being basically the second half of last week's reading, and the two are connected, obviously. There's no real dividing line between the two. We kind of chose one arbitrarily kind of in the middle of the reading, but there is an interesting pivot at this point where they return to the banks of the Seine. I should note that this is the largest geographical sleight of hand that we get in this film. Yeah, when we descend from the promenade that we discussed in last week's show, we're back on the left bank of the Seine, despite having been just moments ago on the right bank of the Seine, like 2.5 miles away.
Oh,
so we
interesting.
really shortcut time and space in that moment. Funnily enough, when they come back down and they're on the banks of the Seine, they are like 100 yards away from Shakespeare and Company.
Oh,
they are
weird.
basically within like visual sight of Shakespeare and Company at that.
It's like right where they started.
Yeah, it's really weird. These open-topped tourist boats, I went and looked these up. These are bateau mouche, which literally translates as flyboats, but not like as in a housefly, right?
Oh.
But that's not a metaphor. I went down a rabbit hole trying to find out
I guess.
why are they called fly? They don't look like flies. They demonstrably don't fly. But it's actually just because they are produced in the Mouche region of Lyon in central France. So they're named after their place of origin rather than any kind of thematic or metaphorical naming. And then when they disembark from the boat, when they're on Quai Henri Crotte, right?
Yes.
They're only like 1,000 yards, less than 1,000 yards actually, down the river. They do go to the right bank of the Seine, the north bank there. So we kind of, that is correct, but it takes them an awfully long time to cover a very short span of distance there. Also, did you note the connection there? That they get dropped off at Henry IV. What is the name of Jesse's kid?
Henry, who's 4 years old.
Numerology is real. It's so weird to do that, right? That's not this kind of film. What are you doing?
Don't know.
That feels like, first season of Lost. That feels like all these things are connected.
all the little Easter eggs. I didn't even notice. Yeah.
It's so weird. There's a couple of odd little Easter eggs. When they first board the boat and Jesse is paying for the tickets, he says, all right, all right, all right. Which is a direct Matthew McConaughey reference, intended solely to make Richard Linklater laugh. That was it. Weird, right?
That is weird. Yeah.
What an odd moment at such a terrific distance too, because that's a wide, wide open shot.
Weird.
But there it is. Yeah. Then we get that beautiful shot, as I say, of Celine on the boat as Jesse's giving instructions to the driver, which I think that is peak cinematography for this film. I know we're going to get what is in effect one beautiful shot next week. The locked off shot in the car is just gorgeous. And then the final reverse angle that we get in the apartment, also, of course, luminous and so special. But we certainly haven't seen anything this good so far.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
I think that when we're done with this movie, this shot is going to be
it is what stays
arguably at least the best shot in the film.
my mind.
It's so beautiful. And all that gorgeous golden hour light. Full credit to the cinematographer here, who I was reading earlier, did spend like 3 months just color balancing the film in the final edit.
Yeah,
they cut it all together, and then we're so sure that he would be able to do it. And for those of you who don't know about color balancing, it's the technical term for changing how colors appear in each given frame so that they appear continuous with one another, so that you're not thrown out by suddenly the light is a different quality, suddenly you've reset the clock by an hour, suddenly it's a cloudy day rather than a sunny day. It's very hard to do. It is more art than science. I've heard
that it's very hard to do.
I've done a tiny bit of it just digitally with every tool in the world at my disposal, and it's a huge pain in the ass. So for this guy to do it effectively in an analog system, I think just an astounding accomplishment. Because you never, I think, feel dropped out of the immediacy of the film. It really does. Doesn't it feel as though it just all unfolds at once? It
Yeah.
unfolds in real time.
Yeah, I mean, there are some moments. There is a moment on in this sequence that we just watched for today, where the light is so gold that you know the sun's going to slip into the horizon any
Yeah.
minute, and that definitely doesn't happen. So it's not perfect, but I think that it does hang together.
It's a gorgeous piece of work. So I know that you wanted to talk a little about this story that Jesse tells about the German occupation of Paris during the Second World War
Yeah.
and the rigging of all of these places of cultural and historical import with explosives, only for individual man at the moment of retreat to make the choice not to destroy Notre Dame and Sacré-Cœur and the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
It's a very moving story. How does it strike you in that moment as a piece of narrative from Jesse?
Yeah.
What is the metaphor that he's getting at here, do you think, as he's contemplating the blowing up of his own life?
I guess I didn't think of it that way. I think it's a really lovely moment. I love that the first thing she asks is that true?
Yeah.
And he says, I don't know, but I always like the story.
It's not, sadly.
Yeah.
But it's not also completely distinct from the actual history, because at the end of the war, Paris is under the governorship of a German general who labors under the unfortunate name Dietrich von Choltitz.
Okay.
Unfortunate. There's the resistance uprising, right? This is several weeks before the final surrender in Paris. There's a resistance uprising in the Parisian prefecture, and von Choltitz was ordered to put it down with artillery fire. This order comes from Berlin: fire using your artillery on this part of the city. That would have resulted in, yes, the destruction of the resistance at that moment, but also the destruction of Notre Dame. And he refused.
Wow.
He just led out and burned enough time that the resistance took a hold in other parts of the city and it would no longer have been an effective military strategy. And then he surrendered.
Wow.
And afterwards, in his autobiography, he claims that it was out of respect for these great historic places that he had
Wow.
never intended to see the destruction of Paris.
Mm.
So it's not quite the story
but
that Jesse
kinda,
tells, but
yeah.
it's as accurate as Celine's quote from Albert Einstein in last week's meeting, for sure.
Yeah, sure.
So what do you make of this? What do you make of this idea that he's already thinking about places being saved from destruction? That when there is a war, when there is a conflict, when there is a titanic upheaval, that some places are saved, that some things are preserved. What metaphorically is the thing that he is thinking about when he's thinking of the preservation in the face of fire and destruction?
I think you have an answer for this. I think you
I don't
must be.
know
No?
that I necessarily do, honestly. I just find it interesting that as he is clearly thinking about his life, because that's all the other stuff that we get from
Right,
Jesse in this
right.
reading. He's thinking about this moment of preservation, and he's struck by it. He's not struck by the beauty of Notre Dame. He's not struck by its eternal presence in the city. He's not struck by its sanctity. He's not struck by its construction or by its popularity or its beauty. He is struck by the fact that his mind goes first to the story of its preservation against fire and destruction.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would maybe lean into the explanation that he's thinking of Celine, that what he is trying to do right now is preserve their moment, their night in Vienna, perhaps preserve their relationship as he's about to set fire to his life. But then I don't know if he's about to set fire to his life if he doesn't meet Celine.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's contemplating that yet, or in a real way anyway. Yeah. I mean, you can see his anguish in this sequence for sure. You can see how they're both kind of dealing with the grief differently, where she has just said, there's no other way that this could have gone. It went the way it went, and that's what my life is.
Yeah.
But he keeps trying to undo it somehow, to solve some kind of puzzle that will make it to where he can reverse time. And he seems really...
It's so interesting that she enters into the same kind of metaphorical space when she's talking about Notre Dame, and she says that one day it will be gone. And did you know there used to be another church there before Notre Dame? It suggests this kind of continuity of experience, even if the object of your desire goes away, which is fascinatingly completely at odds with what she says later about the impressions left upon her by her romantic relationships. And I think these are two very confused people who are having a lot of big feelings on a boat.
Yes.
I'm just fascinated by how they're trying to navigate it. Do you believe, Jesse, when he says that the reason for writing the book was to meet Celine.
Oh,
he says that
definitely.
now I know for sure, right?
Yeah.
Which suggests that this was not like planned exactly,
Right.
but that there was something in him.
There's
that was,
no way he didn't think about it. There's no way he didn't rehearse this conversation and at least imagine it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm sure that he rehearsed this conversation 40 times in the years since. I don't know how
Right.
much the book and the book tour was supposed to be a means of reconnecting with
I
Celine.
mean, there are so many things that have to happen and line up for that to work out. Like the accomplishment of writing the book alone is huge.
Yeah.
Then finding, a publisher and a distributor, and
Right,
then
it has
that
to be-
publisher and distributor sending you on a European tour, which
It has
makes
to be
sense
sufficiently
with this
popular,
specific
yes.
book because it's about a European city. But even
And
so,
the specific time and place, because the
Yeah.
publishing industry was not doing this even 5 years later.
yeah,
than
so
this movie.
true.
Another way in which this is
And again, he's at Shakespeare & Co. and there are 8 people who have come
Yeah.
to see this book launch.
again the unanswered question of this movie. How good is his
Is
book?
the book good? Do people
Is it not
buy
good?
I don't know.
Has he just charmed his way into this book tour? Is he
Right.
self-funding this book tour?
Oh God, yeah.
Either way, he's leaving
It's true because
his.
he doesn't talk about what his other part of his
He
life is
doesn't.
like. What?
No, I think that we're supposed to believe that he is just a writer now. But he's
Wow.
leaving his wife, his elementary school teacher wife, in the United States.
Uh-huh.
Admittedly, it's June, so it's summer vacation.
Right.
But he's leaving her at home with their 4-year-old son while he is in Europe for long enough that he is exhausted by being in Europe,
Yeah.
as we meet him at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
Which, maybe casts a shadow on his motivation here a little bit. It's fascinating to try and get to the heart of it as they are starting to crack open, as they are starting to really reveal how they are feeling, what they are feeling, what they have been feeling this whole time.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting that Celine pivots to this kind of, she has this line about, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, you get water every single time.
Exactly,
Right? This
yeah.
deterministic, mechanistic view of the universe, which is the furthest point on the spectrum from where she was when we met her in the first film.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about this change in Celine, the absence of this innocence, the loss of innocence and
Yeah.
open-mindedness, right? This kind of
She does
open-hearted
become more
naivete.
cynical as the films move on.
And she's arrived at the most cynical point, which is everything is preordained and deterministic, and you can't
Yeah.
change a damn thing. It's all just mechanical at the basic level, which I don't think actually matches basically anything that we see in Celine's behavior,
Yeah,
right?
it does seem to be, that denial part of grief,
A little bit, yeah.
She seems to be really pushing back against the idea of there being any other outcome for the two of them
Right.
than how things shook out.
Or that if they had met in Vienna, it wouldn't be a simple change to their lives. We would have this butterfly effect that
Right.
everything would be completely different. So you can't even speculate about what life would be like. It is interesting.
I
She
think-
keeps coming back to this idea of, well, maybe we would have ended up hating each other.
Right.
You know?
Like we hate each other now.
Exactly.
So good. Such a great line. Yeah, I think that she must also feel guilty because she was the one that wasn't able to make it,
That certainly comes through, I think, in her line here when he says, why the hell? I think I wrote this book so I
Yeah.
could ask you, why the hell weren't you there
Yeah.
in Vienna? She says, well, you know why I wasn't there. But the way that she responds, I think, does communicate a certain sense of responsibility, if not a sense of,
Yeah.
of guilt. And knowing Celine as we do at this point, I think probably less guilt and more regret that this is her way of expressing this yearning.
Yeah.
That she's kind of also wishing what Jesse is wishing, but she has shut it down in a way that he has not shut it down,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. And it is maybe, the breaking point between the two of them is maybe the thing which distinguishes the one from the other, right? They are alike in so many ways, except for this thing. She cannot, as she articulates here, she can't live with the possibility of the one that got away.
Yeah.
Because it is too present and painful. It never stops being present for her.
Mm.
So she had to shut it down, whereas it becomes past for him. It becomes so much the past for him that he has to rekindle it in the present by writing the book.
Yeah.
He needs to work to keep it present.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it's just always there.
Mm.
And I find that contrast so incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
What do you think of this moment of revelation that he probably saw her in New York City on the way to his wedding?
Heartbreaking,
Isn't
but
it
so perfectly done.
Oh my God. I
And
lived
she
on 11th
says,
and Broadway. And nothing more can be said or needs
Yeah.
to be said because that's all of it right there. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredibly romantic. Very beautiful. I'm always surprised by how much I can visualize that story as he's telling it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like it's a part of the film. I've seen it so many times in my head.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if you somehow re-edited this film to include like a weird
little
flashback
flashback.
montage
Yeah.
right, of
Yeah.
this scene that we've never seen before, it would still feel completely cohesive
Mhm.
because they're communicating so much with
Yeah.
their words and of course with their silences too. The unspeakable pain of, I always thought that I saw you. I kept thinking that I saw you. And then
Yeah.
this one time when it was most crucial, when it was most important,
Yeah.
I probably did actually see you. But even then we can never be sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's that bittersweet turn of the knife. It's
Yeah.
just, it's this film doing what it does absolutely best. I don't think the film does anything better than the pain of that longing and that desire, but a desire that remains present because in a way they both want it to remain present, right? If Celine had really put the past to bed, if she had really separated herself out, if she really believed in a mechanistic universe and just had separated herself emotionally from what happened in Vienna, she would never have gone to the bookstore. She would never have undertaken this journey with him. She would never have opened up to him about her life. It would have been, even if they had bumped into each other, it would have been much more formal. It would have been much more, distant, safely distant. And I'm reminded, I'm sure you can tell the story, the joke better than I can, but the whole thing about seeing them and seeing each other in New York, there's that story about the guy who's on the roof of his house when the flood comes and he's praying to God.
Oh, right.
And the boat comes by and he said, no, it's okay. God's got me. And then the helicopter comes by and he says, it's all right. I'm praying to God. He's going to save me. And then he dies in the flood water and winds up in heaven. And he says to God, why? Why didn't you rescue me? And God said, I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter. It's kind of got that, like, I was just looking for a sign and I got a sign and I didn't know what to do with it.
Right. Didn't do anything. Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that in your real life? Do you have these moments in your past where you think that maybe there was like, a road diverged in a yellow wood and maybe you should have taken the other path? Are there things like that live with you?
Yes, definitely. I try not to linger on them too much. Well, it depends. I mean, I think that there is, that's why we say bittersweet, right?
Yeah.
The sweet part of it will keep me in that headspace maybe longer than I need to be because part of that feels good. Like, I think longing, that's part of this movie too, right? Like desire, that's
the thing that keeps you alive.
That's the thing that keeps you going. Yeah. Like, is it not desiring anything a sign of depression? Right. Exactly. So yes. And then I think particularly because of the way that Jesse describes his marriage, my marriages both, I felt that way very much. That it was just
it's
not that important who the person is. You just decide to like cohabitate and make a life together and, be on the same team for forever. And I think once I watched this film in particular, I remember feeling like I had really fucked up, like I had really made the wrong decision and that there were people who loved each other in a way that I didn't think I would ever get again.
Yeah. Or
maybe ever. And then to feel like I had just dug my own grave and just climbed right into it was really, really tough.
Yeah.
Like, I remember after watching this film just sobbing, I remember.
I think it's telling that throughout we're thinking in terms of destruction and consequence, right? We're seeing a little bit of what will happen if these two people decide to pursue this relationship at this point, that there's going to be collateral damage and that's going to be unintended, but also inescapable. And that's
almost all on Jesse's side too.
Yes. Though, I mean, if what Selena's saying about being so present with her romantic relationships, she will also feel the pain of losing photojournalist guy.
Yeah.
And that will be a different thing too. And almost this kind of opportunity cost that they are together now, and maybe she should have gone to Vienna because then they would have been together this whole time. That maybe there's something bittersweet too, right? About if they rekindle this relationship now, they will still have lost the years that they lost.
So much, yeah.
And it's hard to always keep present and to it's so easy as human beings to romanticize the past and to believe that you have these moments of connection, right? To believe that you have these moments of almost intervention, that you have these moments of absolute clarity, that a road diverges, right? That making any choice in life is ever as simple as the left path or the right path in a yellow wood, because it never is. It's never that easy. You're never making a binary choice between A and B. Life is just so much more complicated than that. So we romanticize those moments of intersection in the past, but we also, I think, fictionalize those moments of intersection in the past. The decisions that we make are the consequences of 400 decisions that we've already made. And that there's an inertia to one's path through life, which is why it's so hard to change it. It's why it's so hard to find yourself on a given road and decide this isn't where I want to be, and to take the next exit, right? It's so hard to reorient your life. And that seems to be true here too, that they're becoming increasingly aware of the magnitude of this relationship that is still present for them both. Is it ironic, as Jesse's talking about marrying his wife, being in college, they're together, they're not together, they're together, now suddenly she's pregnant, so they get married. He's making this commitment almost to the institution more than the woman. He wants to be a great man. He wants to do a great thing, and that means being socially conformist. Okay. But he's echoing the story that he tells about his parents in the first movie. He's also weirdly echoing his relationship with real life wife, Uma Thurman, which is so strange. He separates from Thurman the year before this movie, and they get finally divorced the year after, which is so strange in terms of his emotional positioning as an actor in this film. It feels like a very special kind of circumstance. And it is, of course, because one of the reasons that they make this film is that he's no longer married to his wife. One of the reasons is that he is now independently capable of going to Paris for, 2 months to shoot this thing and to rehearse and prep this thing. I also have to tell you this because I know about it now, and I don't want to be the only one who knows about it. And it's kind of because I'm not celebrity gossip guy.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right? But it turns out that during their divorce, Uma Thurman claims publicly, alleges publicly that Ethan Hawke was having an affair with their nanny, a woman named Ryan Shaw-Hughes, who was 12 years younger than Ethan Hawke, 21 years old at the moment that he splits with Uma Thurman. He has denied and continues to deny to this day that there was any romantic or sexual involvement with Ryan Shaw-Hughes. He is emphatic about it. And then 3 years after their divorce, in 2008, he gets married for the second time to, wait, let me check my notes. Oh, his former nanny, Ryan Shaw-Hughes, to whom he is still married. Weird, right?
That is weird. I didn't know that.
There's something just so tacky and gross. And it's all like right around that time. There's something so tacky and gross about sleeping with your nanny. Yeah. As a celebrity in particular. I, of course, am British. I was in Britain at the time. So the whole story of Jude Law and Sienna Miller, where Jude Law slept with a nanny, and it was front page tabloid news. It feels like every day for 6 months.
Yikes. Right
around that time. There's Ben Affleck splits up with Jennifer Connelly because of that. There are other instances of this whole, it's just so the tawdriest, grossest bullshit thing to do. Don't sleep with someone that you're employing anyway. Don't sleep with someone you're employing to take care of your children. No. It's just...
That's not good.
It's gross, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger, too, famously got caught up in all of that. Oh, the other one is Gavin Rossdale. That's the end of his marriage to Gwen Stefani, which is a crazy thing to think about now. Boy, what a bullet she dodged there. From a certain point of view. It's so weird, so gross.
That is weird.
Yeah. To set all of that aside, though, isn't it interesting, he asked provocatively, that Jesse he's recounting the story. This is what happened to me. It's exactly what happened to his parents.
Yeah.
As cited
Which
in the
is
first
so
film.
normal, just to repeat the same mistakes that your parents made and to just pass on that kind of generational, often trauma.
Do you think that there's a path to, God, this is such a loaded question. Do you think there's a path to greatness through that kind of conformity? Do you think that there's a path to personal greatness, particularly as a man in the world?
No.
Through kind of just fulfilling your obligations and doing what you're supposed to do, doing what society expects of you?
Absolutely not. I don't.
Interesting.
I mean, it's such a conservative argument, and I'm so far from conservatism now. But no, I don't think for any person that being a dishonest version of who you are for the sake of an institution, no.
Yeah.
I don't think anything that's real or good comes. It certainly doesn't in this situation. You think that his wife is thriving as much as she could.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Like, she'd be better off if he'd let her be, you know, just
Yeah.
paid alimony and
Or
don't know.
just supported the kid.
Yeah,
Be present
child
in the kid's
support and
life. Like,
present and
absolutely.
yeah, but-
yeah.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be acrimonious. It doesn't have to be
Absolutely.
embittered. But
Although I admit I find that difficult. Like, I only have a couple of exes that I still consider friends. I suppose I also only have like a handful of exes, period.
yeah,
So, but certainly ex-spouses, like people who can still like hang out and do barbecues, I can't imagine.
it's a thing in fiction which I respond to so positively. It's a thing which I hold to be such a capital G good.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to still conduct yourself with decency and with generosity, with dignity, to be
kindness,
good
even.
and kind. Right. And we do get a little bit of that there from Jesse as he's talking about, she's smart, she's
He
beautiful.
speaks well of her.
He does,
Yeah.
which is to his infinite credit because, it's easy. It's tempting. It's gratifying to slip into enmity and acrimony at the
Yeah.
end of a relationship.
When he says that they've had sex 10 times in 4 years, do you think he's blaming her for that?
I do,
Me too.
because I think that Jesse is a guy who blames his partner for the amount of sex they do or do not have.
Yeah.
I think that he is kind of a good guy by the standards of 2004, but he's still kind of a good guy by the standards of 2004.
Yeah.
And I think that he sees sex as a thing that he is due as a
and
part
owned.
of a
Yeah.
relationship. Like, it is a complaint about their marriage
Right.
that they don't have sex. And we don't hear, so we went to a therapist. So I am in therapy. So we are,
Exactly.
working together to work on this problem. So we have communicated our expectations and our needs to each other. So we've discussed the possibility of opening our marriage up. So
Yeah.
like,
None of this.
There's
Yeah,
none of this.
none of
It's
it.
no, you are supposed to fulfill my needs because you are my person. It's hard to condemn him, in 2004. I don't think that it's unusual at that point. I don't think that he is an outlier, and thus it is difficult to judge him. The film is not condemning him in that moment, I think. Or do
No,
you
I don't
disagree?
think the film
Yeah.
is condemning him. Well, and again, he's the central character, so I don't think the film would. No, I think that
I don't know that that's fair. I think this film is very happy to condemn Jesse several times. The first film almost delights in it. The first film almost delights in, look at this asshole. Isn't he charming? And he might be good someday, but he's not now, is
he's
he?
kind of a rooster prick. Yeah.
Kind of a rooster prick, it turns out. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you mean.
And then in the third film, we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the faults and foibles of both of these characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Where, ironically, they are both, I think, going to be closer to their great lives than they are now. I think we're going to be looking at a less conventional relationship in a less conventional environment
Yeah.
by the time we
yeah.
get to the third movie.
I do think that's true.
Do you feel as we approach the end of this reading, and by extension, therefore, the end of this film, that we are applying the proper emotional torque to this question of the two of them working, the two of them having a spark? Right? Because when Celine's talking about the deterministic universe and he's talking about his commitment to the institution of marriage more than an individual person, what we're seeing from both of them, and this will be articulated very precisely by Jesse in next week's clip, which listeners to this podcast already know because it's in the little montage that I put together for the season 2 opening music right at the start of every podcast episode. But he's going to say next week that he has had all but given up on the notion of romantic love. And this seems to be true of both of them, that they have kind of compartmentalized away the idea of capital L love.
Yeah.
Like the true kind of bolt of lightning, magical love, that they've just set it aside. They've shut themselves down to the possibility of it. And now we can feel it already, I think, starting to move within them. Are you feeling that pressure? Are you feeling that? When you're watching the film in its entirety rather than chopped up into these pieces, are you swept up in the story at this point? Or are you feeling the inevitability and the...
You absolutely. Yeah. No, you can feel it so much in the sequence, especially like the way he looks at her when she's talking. She hasn't quite gotten to return that look yet, but I know that she will in the next sequence. It's very clear. And you can see her thawing too. She's trying to protect herself, but it's very clear how much they've been hung up on each other their whole lives, and that it seems inevitable that they have to at least give it a shot.
Well, I don't know. I mean, both of them have spent basically the entire movie to this point arguing why they shouldn't and why it would never work out and why it's useless to even try. This is why we can't have nice things. It's going to be fascinating to look at next week's reading, which is, you're absolutely right, so powerful. Next week, we are taking Celine home from 53 minutes and 33 seconds to 64 minutes and 18 seconds. That is a 10.5-minute reading next week. And it's our penultimate reading. It's not our penultimate episode because we will have, as is traditional here at Don't You Know Me By Now, we will have an episode that will cover the closing credits, where we'll try and pick out any fun names that we see and any weird jobs that we don't understand, but also give our general appreciation for the film as a whole. But we're suddenly almost done. It's so tangible in the film too. One of the things that I really love about this film that's always been special from the first time that I saw it is that it completely understands that very human psychological pressure that we associate with deadlines, that they could have been talking like this at this level this whole time, right? They could have skipped talking about, as Jesse suggests as they're walking through the promenade, right? He could have skipped talking about the environment. They could have got down to it and really talked about their lives. They didn't need to spend 45 minutes before they bring up their significant others. We could have got right to it, but it's the pressure of the deadline.
Right.
It's the pressure of this imminent separation that is forcing them, that's compelling them to be more honest and available to one another. And I love how the film
It's beautifully
just
structured.
manifests that and makes us live in it. That's absolutely true in this reading, of course, but wow, is it true in next week's reading? The claustrophobia, the intimacy of next week's reading is phenomenal. So we will get to that in our next episode of Don't You Know Me By Now. Elizabeth, do you have any closing thoughts? Is there anything else you wanted to discuss?
I just want to say how charmed I am by Jesse sliding down the poles to go down the stairs.
I meant to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Is it charming? Is it boyish? Is it both?
Yes.
Okay.
It's playful.
It is playful.
Yeah.
I don't need him to be playful right now. It feels, I don't know. I am most frustrated of all the characteristics that Jesse possesses. I am most frustrated by his boyishness. I want him to be a man. I want him to stand up properly. And I want him to do the things that he has to do. But
I hear you.
in that moment, I find a little, come on, man. Like, it's almost like pulling her to the bench, you know, when he brings her down.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling a little bit of that tension too.
Yes.
But
Agreed.
I think I am generally much less attracted by boyishness than you are.
Fair enough.
Don't You Know Me By Now is a Next Word production. You can support the show, join our community of listeners, and get access to bonus episodes and lots more by visiting patreon.com/nextword. You can find show notes and other episodes at knowmepod.com. That's knowpod.com. And you can reach us at knowmepod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Thanks for listening.